The war in Ukraine has really presented profound challenges for the world of ESG, some even calling this a transformational moment for the entire investment landscape, really redefining what it means to invest sustainably. Would you agree?
I think certainly what you're seeing as a result of the war is rethinking the relationship between energy security and energy transitions, and therefore, as a result, sort of looking at ESG more broadly. Certainly, Europe is emerging as a laboratory for what is and isn't possible as we move forward when you get a combination of political intent, when you get a combination of energy security concerns, the willingness to spend money, and crucially, public support. And I think what you're seeing there is really a drive towards energy transitions as a way of reinforcing self-sufficiency, as a way of decoupling from Russia, and as a way of really putting Europe on a growth path in the longer term. I think, elsewhere in the world, energy security is being viewed in slightly different terms. And, that the availability, the cost, are all factors that are going to force different governments to approach issues in different ways. Maybe not as fast as Europe, but certainly a belief that energy transitions can reinforce that energy security debate and that energy security intent.
I ask because there's been a fascinating piece in the Financial Times that's been talking about this, and you just need to look at two sectors in particular, defence and energy, as we've been discussing. These two sectors have both outperformed, and they don't necessarily align with the traditional lens of ESG. We've seen investors really leaning into defence stocks throughout the course of the year as the war in Ukraine continues to unfold, and at the same time, investors also heavily leaning into energy as some of these European governments turn their backs on climate and sustainability goals and invest into fossil fuels, lean into fossil fuels in order to guarantee energy security and supply. So would you say that the future of the very term ESG is actually in doubt as a result of the current situation that we face now? All of a sudden, all of these governments are very pro-ESG before the war, and now in a time of crisis and in the fog of war, it seems as if all of that has changed pretty drastically, pretty quickly.
I'm not sure I agree with that. I think that ESG is still important. As I said, in Europe, the issue in terms of promoting energy transitions, the issue in terms of a long-term drive towards more renewables in the system, greater energy efficiency, is actually seen as the way towards energy security and enhancing energy security. Yes, in the very short term, I think governments are doing everything they need to secure supplies at a period of time when I think there is uncertainty in the market, severe uncertainty in the market, worries about disruptions of supply, and that, is shown in prices. But in the very long term, I think from a European perspective, what you're seeing is some very aggressive and very ambitious moves. Elsewhere, as I said, I don't think that's necessarily the same thing. But, when prices are this high in the energy sector, when companies are making the profits that they are making, this is a time when energy stocks start to look better than they have in the past. Energy stocks haven't necessarily performed that well over the past decade. Total shareholder return hasn't been that great compared to other sectors. But when, oil prices are in the 120s, that situation looks very different. And I think what you're seeing is a market lean towards that in the short term, but not necessarily one that reverses ESG in the long term.